Hello, everybody. How are you doing? My apologies. It's just been a rough 24 hours here. I want to say, first of all, to everyone, thank you for your thoughts for Lynn. It's very much appreciated. Um, and we're just believing that, um, she's going to be able to break this fever. So I may have to cut this a little bit short just to let everyone know it's just the way it is. And so, having said that, I just want to say favor to everyone. Bosto, happy birthday and healing. I'll tell you what, I don't know what this is, if it's the virus or if it's a whatever they want to say. It's tough. So, um, so give me a second here and introduce our guest and um, Ryder Lee, and he has his channel called Raised by Giants. And Ryder, good to see you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on here. I've watched your show for around a year now, so it's quite an honor to be on here and speak with you.
We'll give you a medal for enduring, right? Well, thank you. And I've perused your channel over there. I've left the link for Ryder's channel. Make sure you go over there and subscribe. Um, the first thing I always like to do is I always like to ask people, how did you get, tell us a little bit about yourself, obviously, but more importantly, we're on an adventure here. There are many different paths that intersect here. And I just want to say something to everyone out there. I've had two incidences where people were saying, well, Wayne, if you don't do this, you're going to go down the wrong path at your own peril. Folks, let me just say this is commentary. Your path is your path. My path is my path. If I tried to live your path, I'd be on the wrong path. If you tried to live my path, you would be on the wrong path. And we all have to understand no one person here that I've met, and I've been on this planet for 65 plus years, um, can say or is qualified to either judge or render an opinion on your path. It's foolish because it is the dog chasing its tail. Nothing gets done. We're all on our own path. We just happen to be on a super highway right now. There's so many intersecting paths coming in at the singularity at this moment in time. So if I just want to put that out there, much love to both the individuals that where I had this discussion, but I think it's an all good lesson for all of us. So much love to you both, and let's continue to respect each other's paths. And if you say, well, but I've had a similar experience, oh, I can dig that. But you know what? The thing about it is, your experience and my experience of a same experience would be a different experience. Okay, I'm sure. So,
Right? Yeah. Nobody has monopoly on truth, right?
well, I
They want
haven't
to.
found out what truth is, Ryder, to be honest with you.
Right, but see, they want to put everything in a box, right? They
Yeah,
want to dress it up nice and neat,
yeah,
and make it something that fits their narrative, right? And it fits their belief that they've believed their entire life, right? That's
yeah,
what screws a lot of people up, is really their expectation of what they think that a situation or a person should be,
yeah.
right?
Spot on, my friend. Spot on. So, who is Ryder Lee? How did Ryder Lee arrive to the quest of, as I in your YouTube channel, as you said, all things spiritual? I love that. It's what drives, I think, so many of us. So, um, what's up? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, really, the the reason that I made the YouTube channel was because I was seeing that a lot of the problems that we suffer in our reality in the current construct isn't going to be solved by making more laws, right? The people that enslave us isn't going to save us, right? Um, so they're basically a bunch of spiritual problems that we're basically living in a self-imposed prison of our own thoughts.
Mm.
right? And that kind of goes back to what you were just speaking about, how, what we were speaking about before we started was that we're basically born into this reality and we're set up from the beginning. We're in a trap from the very beginning, right? And we have this, we're given this identity, we're given all of these things, and our beliefs are kind of passed down to us. We're we're technically a product of our environment and our beliefs, right? Depending on where we're born in the world, what situation we come up out of is how we are, right?
So what
But
I'm hearing
there,
is predeterminism,
I mean,
predestination.
there's a way to break all of that, right? But you have to have the awareness, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you go through your entire life just believing the exact same thing that you believed from the time that you were told that, then you're not expanding anymore, right? If you're constantly in a comfort zone, you're constantly in the same situation that you're always in, there is no expansion, right? There's no expansion of consciousness. There's no expansion of beliefs. That's the reason why I really like your channel and other channels like yours, because you challenge the beliefs of
Piss
a
off a
lot
lot
of
of
people.
people is what I do, but
But no, that's perfect because you're not telling people what to believe,
oh no, no,
right? You
no.
lay out the evidence, you give them your thoughts, and then it's up to them to decide how they want to go about it and if they want to believe it or not. And that's the most beautiful thing about our reality, right? I believe 100% that everything is ran on perception, right?
Yeah.
And this perception fuels our beliefs, right? Yeah, it's kind of a it's weird, but I'll get into a little bit more about myself. I was born in a very small town. I was born on raised on a farm, so
Excellent.
I know a little bit about hard work and
Yeah,
manual labor. But
lean, mean back in those days. I think I had a 22-inch waist at one point.
yeah, I'm starting to get on that quarantine belly, but it's all right.
That was a former life.
Yeah.
So small town values, small town, what I call small towns really build what I think is more rounded character in
Yeah.
individuals. Just my opinion. And hard work.
Yeah, and integrity, right?
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
being real and being authentic,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
everyone knows everyone, and if you're doing something wrong, then the whole town knows about it, basically.
They do.
But I basically, whenever I was growing up, I was very intuitive and tuned in to a lot of things. Like I think a lot of us are whenever we're really young and we're kids, we're very tuned in because that's the closest that we are to source, right? Is whenever we're young because we haven't been indoctrinated with all of these beliefs and identities and attachments yet, right? So that's when we're in our purest state. So I was getting, I had a lot of things happen to me when I was younger. Every night, whenever I would lay in bed, I would basically see these beings come out of the walls, right? There were these, they were translucent bodies and faces just surround me every night in my bed. And you remember the old wood paneling
Mm-hmm.
and like trailers and all? That's exactly what it was. It was this old wood paneling.
The 70s, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So,
that and shag carpet.
but they would basically come out of the walls every night, and I would try and because they scared me to death, and they would get super close to my face, and I tried to tell my parents about it, and they thought that I was just seeing things and making things up, and that I had a crazy imagination. They thought something was wrong with me, right? So they ended up taking me to an eye doctor to get my eyes checked out and like all this because I mean they don't understand what's going on. They don't know anything. We're from a small town, they're
Were
raised
you
on a
were you
farm.
raised in a non-religious home?
Yes and no. My father was Christian and my mom was atheist. So I basically had two really extremes going on there,
So
which
you had chocolate milk.
Yeah, basically.
It's the only way you
Yeah,
can do it. Yeah. Well, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It was super. It was weird, and I think that a lot of my animosity towards my mother came stemmed from that, right? Because I kind of went with the Christianity side to kind of spite her, right? Because she didn't believe in that. She believed that we, evolved from monkeys and apes and all of that, right? So I kind of went with the whole religious route, knowing that it didn't resonate with me. Christianity and religion never resonated with me. I just basically did it to spite her, right?
That's
I always
motivation.
knew something was wrong, right? There
Yeah.
was something that did not feel right in my soul and in my being when I stepped into a church or when I just saw fakeness, just
Hmm.
everyone being so fake and unauthentic, right? And that was the opposite of what I was, right? I was being super authentic and real to my core, even when people didn't like what I said or didn't like me or whatever. I still told them exactly how it was, and I was a very straightforward person.
I
You
bet
know,
you were popular.
yeah. I mean, I actually was really popular in high school, but that's a whole other story. But
So
yeah,
you have your dad who is, the Christian belief, your mom who, and I I don't think it's atheism, but that's how they like to define people. She saw creation from a different point of view. But yet you were encountering elements that would call, and it's interesting because I had similar, I've told my story, and Trina's had hers. I mean, at the age of 3, I can still remember being in this. The color was the most beautiful teal, and that's what it was everywhere. And I didn't want to be in the body. So you were having already what I would call existential impressions, experiences. How did that work out for you as a child growing up?
well, I think that when my mom and my parents, my mom and my dad, thought that it was something wrong with me, it wasn't external to me. Um, it kind of shut that down within me, right? And then other abilities started manifesting in my life. I was basically able to see future events. Um, I was able to manifest things in my reality very easily, as a child. Like growing up, in the '90s, like I collected, a lot of Pokemon cards and like basketball cards and football cards and baseball cards and like all that because my dad was super in the cards and comic books and stuff like that. So I would basically be able to think of a card that I wanted in my mind, right? And I would tell my dad, I'd be like, "Hey, we need to go to the store because I'm going to get this, this holographic Charizard card. 100%, Dad. You got to believe me." And then we would go and I would get 2 packs of cards and I would pull it out every single time. Whatever card that I wanted, I would get, right? And you would think that I would have learned something from that, but there was such a time gap in between how old I am now and then, right? But whenever I look back on it, it shows me that the key to manifestation is the belief in it, right? You have to believe that whatever you're trying to manifesting is going to happen no matter what. No matter
Mm.
what's going on in your reality, you have to believe it with all of your heart and soul. And then it normally happens, right? But
I
we've been
think even
so
the story of Jesus, in fact, I know exactly the chapter and verse. Uh, he said that he could do no great miracles because of the people's lack of faith,
mm,
except what they said, heal one or two. And it shows you what happens. I'm going to be teaching more on faith, and this is what you were experiencing as a child because it was natural. You didn't question it. You looked in
right.
your mind, you saw that holographic card, and you knew it was going to be there. Amazing gift. That is faith in full manifestation. So continue on. This is good. So it didn't stay with you. That apparently, did you begin to doubt it, or did you begin to
No,
get it?
again, I think that it was kind of shut down by my parents, right? Because I was getting other things like I would be able to. We would listen to the radio a lot, 90s, in the car and at the house and stuff like that, and I would basically be able to predict every single song that would come on next after all the songs, right? I'd be like, yeah, so and so is going to play, by the Beach Boys, and next is going to be AC/DC, and then the song after that's going to be, the Eagles, you know. And it got to the point where it freaked my mom out, right? To where we wouldn't listen to the radio anymore.
Well, that's the way to do it. Just ignore it. It's going to go away.
Right. And it really shut those abilities down on me. Right. And really, they didn't start coming back again until I was around 20 or 21. Right. But this time I was out of my parents' house. I was living with my grandmother because there was a whole situation going on there. But all of my abilities came back online all at once. Right. And I basically had this ability to any question that I had, I automatically received the answer for. It didn't matter what it was. I could question anything. I was getting downloads left and right constantly, 24/7, right? Of how our reality works, how what we're living in. And, but again, I shut it down myself that time. And I started using, unfortunately, I started using drugs hard drugs to cope with these things, right? Because I felt so alone that no one could understand what I was going through, and anyone that I would try to talk to about it, because I'm on a different level, right? I'm on a different level of consciousness. I'm on a different vibration, and these people are just looking at me like I'm crazy, right? Some of my best friends were just looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm just completely smashing their reality, and I'm smashing my own reality, right? Because everything is in question now. All of the religious programming that I had subcepted myself to throughout the years, I realized was all lies. You know, um, my entire reality was just completely turned upside down, right? And the only way that I could basically cope with that was drugs, right?
What kind of
And
drugs?
well, it started out with methamphetamine, and then I don't want to sound like a wacko here because
No. Listen.
definitely not a wacko, but I started out with methamphetamine, then I went to Xanax. Then after Xanax, it turned to heroin.
Okay.
And I was in that realm for around 5 years,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Really bad heroin addiction. And I don't wish that upon anyone in the world. It's a miracle that I've survived it. I've OD'd 5 times.
Wow. Wow.
And, it's.
I never had a problem. You've heard my story. I mean, I was growing up on the street at 15. And I'll share with you something. I had taken some orange sunshine, and I had a friend, Robert. He passed over a long time ago. And Robert, well, he was addicted to heroin as well. And one afternoon, I was really out there in the other realm, and I looked at him and I saw this etheric. The best thing I could say, it was a black being, and it feathered its existence as I looked at it. And what I realized then was that for some reason, that particular drug has these entities attached to it.
Mm.
And it so moved me because I could see it so distinctly. And anyway, so that, number one, I congratulate you for, because that's a challenge that few people ever face and very few other people ever overcome. So way to go.
Thank you. I've been sober for almost 2 years now, so
Excellent.
it's been a heck of a journey, and it's been rough. I mean, if it was easy, then anyone can do it, and we wouldn't have addicts dying every single day.
Yeah.
You know,
So the downloads you were getting, it's interesting. Did you consider the source that from where it was coming? The thing that I challenge everyone here in our community, tell me where your thoughts are. Tell me where they come from. And
that's so interesting, Wayne, because that was one of my questions for you that I was going to bring up in this conversation because I think because I watched your show last week about our thoughts, right? And I
yeah,
kept waiting for you to ask the question of, well, where do our thoughts come from? Where do they originate from? Right? Are they something that, because I used to think that our thoughts, and then I'll get your opinion on it. I used to think that our thoughts came from our environment and the situation that we're in, and they basically, what we're doing at the time creates our thoughts,
mhm.
right? And after you tell me where you think that our thoughts come from, I'll tell you what I think where they come from now.
Yeah, I've meditated many times. I've been on the astral plane. I've sat with powerful, I call them spirits. They are us. They're human. They've just been around a long time. And it's the interesting thing because within each of us we have this, the 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 Jewish tradition called it the Guff, the place of souls, that it is within each of us this place. And it you don't see it in this realm because it comes in from the other realm that we're already in. Does that make sense? We're actually much like the wave and particle experience in quantum mechanics. It's going to be either a wave or particle according to what you think.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Well, kind of what I've discovered now is that
People want to know what your shirt says.
says the media is the virus, the reaction is the pandemic, and common sense is the cure.
Woo! Not going to shout you down because you're preaching good. Continue though.
But I think that from my belief now that which I don't even really like saying belief because I think that when you say you believe something, you're limiting your perspective of changing it later on, right? So whenever you say belief, you're locking yourself in, right? So I try not to say belief. I try to say I think or it could be or something like that, right? It's crazy how the way they've set up our words to
Trappist.
basically trap us exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that
Therefore I am.
yeah, um, that it's possible that our thoughts could actually be external to us, right? And that we are like a radio station, right? And whenever we turn that dial, we have a choice. We can either turn that dial into a positive thought, or we can turn that dial into a negative thought, right? The choice is really ours, right? So we can change something that's perceived as negative and the positive by just changing the radio dial, right? If that's the case, and thoughts are actually external to us, right?
As you were talking, I keep in my mind what I was literally seeing. There is a belief that when we come into this realm, I did a whole video on this, a whole thing called the rite of the birth passage, and that we allot ourselves a certain amount of energy. The real me, I don't even know my name because I can't speak it. Because if I speak my real name in this realm, it could be literally the death of me in the other realm where I'm at right now. I only allowed myself in this realm a certain amount of energy. They say most people only bring about 27-30% of their energy into this realm. And my wife, who has seen death, has commented on this, that you can see a person with a certain energy level, and then something happens, and the energy is cut off, and the energy slowly drains to where eventually that person passes over. So I going with what your kind of thought is that I'm evolving, as that famous line in The Big Chill. I'm ever evolving. That's why I don't think I'm evolving, but I'm evolving in the construct that I am really the master programmer in this, what is really called reality, because reality doesn't exist.
It's an illusion.
It
Yeah.
is a total illusion. That's why we love it. That's why we come here. This is good or bad, indifferent or other. It's still the experience. So anyway, I digress.
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind that I mean, what do you think that on these higher levels of consciousness and these other realms, and like they say, there's like the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, seventh dimension, and so on and so on. I don't know about any of that, but I would suspect that in these higher realms there is no good and bad.
There is none. That
There is
is the
no right
key.
and wrong,
That's the
right?
key to get out.
Right? There's just neutrality,
Yeah.
right? And that's where people screw up a lot of times, is they think that a source and like a creator and a God is just one way, right? Whenever I think of a source or a creator or a creator God, I think of him just being neutral, right? Because he can't be one way or the other, right? Because that tips the scales too far in that direction, right? I believe, again, I think that our reality it revolves on balance,
Here's
right?
just my thought. I think when you get into the higher dimensions, and there's even debate whether higher dimensions exist, but we know from our physics that they do. So it lends credence that what was magic is now science. What is science is going to be magic.
Mm,
Um, and hear me out on this. See, the beings that I'm dealing with, there is no God.
right.
People think that that is like your mom, atheistic. No, 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 no. You don't understand. The construct of a God is not needed. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they've evolved past the concept
Oh,
of
that, yeah.
needing to have a God. Yeah.
The only reason why people have a God is that it's basically the boundaries, it's the constraints. Otherwise, and here's the interesting thing in the Christian doctrine, it's one thing that I challenged one of the national televangelists out there, and he couldn't answer the question. And this was that Paul said, everything is permissible for me. It's just not all things are profitable. So within that construct, there is no sin. And the whole thing is, man has trapped himself into thinking that he needs a God. In the upper realms, there is no God. There's no need for one. Because the reality is, and here I use that word loosely, um, I think that's just what we find out. We eventually realize we are God.
Yes.
I mean, that's the weird thing about it. We're all down here, we're all playing this game, but we're all gods. And we love it.
And that's what the whole religious construct has been set up to do, right? Is
Yeah.
for us not to figure out and for us not to find out that we are our own gods,
True
right?
story. What I saw in the church many times when we would have, when the anointing was there, and I would see people come up and have hands laid on them, I was the person laying hands on them. The thing that I have found out is that guilt is orgasmic. When you have so much guilt on you, then when you receive redemption or forgiveness, The euphoric feeling that dumps in with the endorphins gives you that or what I call an orgasmic condition of mind. And we repeat it every week, every day. But that's just an observation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome the way that you challenge people's beliefs and their thinking, right? Because that's the only way that we expand. Like I said earlier, is being challenged, right, and being placed in uncomfortable situations to expand and grow our consciousness, right? If we're just stuck in an echo chamber all the time, constantly, which is basically what social media and our technology has done to us. It puts us in these echo chambers of belief, and so in an emotional reaction, when someone doesn't agree with you, you automatically block them or delete them or unfriend them on social media instead of dealing with it and having a proper debate. You're being attacked, right? You're being character assassinated, just for having a different belief and asking questions. I've never been attacked more in my entire life than in 2020, just by asking questions.
Well, he ain't supposed to
You
do
know?
that. It's like, oh
But it's
crap!
just
Now he's asking questions. Oh,
right.
it's like, now what the hell are we gonna do with it?
Yeah, but that's I've literally been had death wished upon me for just asking questions.
I get used to it. And by the way, congratulations, because you've elevated now in status. When you start getting them where they start cursing you, and then they start cursing you with death and everything else, but they got a loving God, so
Yeah.
remember, yeah, well, we do this as they're butchering you, we're doing this in love, brother. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it, man, do it some more.
The
But
hypocrisy. It's
well,
so hypocritical.
so
Right?
I was in my time of meditation, and here's the update for everyone today. We don't know. Here's the weird thing, and I'm glad we're having this discussion, Ryder, is that you see, we only know one perception of a construct of reality, and it is male doctrinated, dominated, infiltrated. And as it was spoken to me today, humans, they don't know what it is to be in the feminine reality. This reality is devoid of it. And I think it's going to be a shock to so many people. And here's the thing, so we're taught in the Christianity Abrahamic beliefs that you're either going to go up or down. But what I have seen is that many of us are going to go into that plane of existence where the feminine is the reality. And I believe that that's the only place true ascension can be gained. Ascension cannot be gained here, not in this construct, not under this demiurge that is here. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up because I had a guest yesterday on my YouTube channel. Her name's
I
Donna
watched,
Owens,
yeah, I watched that interview. Good one.
and we basically kind of talked about the divine feminine and how they've basically hijacked the whole the feminist movement and the divine feminine movement. Right? They've turned it into something that's not, and they've turned it into a a hate for the other side. Right? Instead of empowering women to make their own decisions and be intuitive and be spiritual, because I think that that's a big part of the divine feminine, right? Is the intuitive heart, right? In our heart space. That's where the divine feminine really is. And the masculine's up here in our mind, right? So in order to actually ascend, which is what you're talking about, we have to make a perfect marrying of those two, right? When our heart becomes one with our mind and they're on the same page, then we can basically perform miracles, right? I think that that's what, to me, Christ consciousness actually is, right? Is the marrying of the divine feminine and the divine masculine becoming one, right?
When you get a chance, write that down in a book, because I can tell you the average Joe and Josie on the street doesn't know what masculine or feminine is, because it's been, again, you and I mean, I lived in a commune outside Taos, New Mexico, and I was there for, I don't know, about 3-4 months. And it was probably the only time that I could actually recall, and I went back and visited that time again, where I could probably express where I did see what was more of the true feminine. There was a balance and a harmony within that commune of people. We had an understanding, and actually, if there was no leader, but if we would say that there was kind of the one that was the what everyone looked to, it was a woman. She was very, very wise. Um, and as I look at today, some nearly 50 years later, um, I realized how far we have regressed. We've gone backwards. We think that this time that we're in a new age and this awakening, but if we really look at it, there were enclaves back then, Ryder, and I know I'm predating myself, but before your existence into this realm, but it was what we were seeking. We really were. And we were trying to seek this. And now I understand we just couldn't define it. We were searching for the goddess. We wanted her. We rejected this maleness that was in what we knew even then. And isn't it odd, here nearly 50 years later, I'm seeing the same conversation, but this time it's different, because I think this time we're being more honest with ourselves and trying to say, I really don't know what the feminine is. I understand duality. I get that. But and as I said yesterday, I made a confession before everyone here. As a male, I don't know what the feminine is.
It's because they've basically hijacked what femininity is, right? They've turned that upside down, and they've inverted it, and they've turned it into a worldly thing instead of a spiritual thing,
And isn't it
right?
odd that most women are taught by male constructs of what femininity is?
Right.
All right, maybe I'm going around. Okay, I think I'm in this house of mirrors, because, I asked the question and all I see is myself looking back going, oh, this is real comforting. But
Yeah,
I think
like
women have it,
yeah,
have a struggle.
their solution for divine feminine is putting women in high positions of power and making sure women get just as many jobs as men do, and that women can be in the military, and women can be construction workers, and basically women can do everything that men do, when that's not what it's about
No,
at
that's
all.
competition.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And they've done the same way with racism too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. Their solution for racism is making a all black cast of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to solve spiritual problems with worldly solutions, and that's what I mean by that statement on my channel, is that we have to grow up and take responsibility for ourselves and our actions, right? That's the only way that we proceed and move on into a better future, is taking responsibility for our own, and stop blaming everyone outside of ourselves for the problems that's going on now, right?
I happen to agree. I think that's a good path. But you and I both know that the unfortunate thing is humanity can't be honest with itself. That's it's come to the conclusions that I am seeing, that it seems to be almost impossible for us to truly, even as a collective, it's challenging when you think about it.
Yeah, because they've set up all of these traps and all of these different programs and social engineering and social programming to get in the way of actually connecting, right? Like they
Yeah.
have, there's so many different things, and it gets crazy. Like, um, we know that the air has been poisoned for decades by chemtrails. We know that our food has had fluoride in it for decades, right? We
Yeah, the
know,
United States is the only country that allows it. Every other country, third world country, has banned fluoride. They know. But anyway, I digress again.
yeah, and our food too. Our food has had gluten and GMOs in it, genetically engineered, modified foods forever now. You
Hmm.
know, so it's like all of these things are set up for us to fall in there and to not for basically for us to be controlled and manipulated, right? To control and manipulate our consciousness, right? And I don't think a lot of people really realize the way that our reality works and the way that our reality is set up, right? These these elites and the people that are in control of the reality, you can call them whatever you want. You can call them, Illuminati, Cabal, Archons, reptilian consciousness, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. There is something in control, which I think that it's just humans. I think that it's us, right? But in order for something negative to happen to us on a collective level, they have to get our consent for it to happen, or else the karma goes back on them, right? So we have to consent to negative things happening to us so that they can place the karmic debt upon us as individuals, right? And that's the way that they've been doing it for a really, really long time. And if they can get the collective consciousness to believe in something, then that basically brings that into the reality, whether it's real or not. Right? Have you heard the term? It's an occult term called egregores or egregorical.
Hmm.
Well, the way that egregores work and egregorical terms work is that it's this occult concept representing a thought form, right, or a collective group mind, right? And these egregores work is based on and feeds off of our feelings, thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that we've put into them so that they can even exist. And our thoughts and emotions is what gives it power, right? So this can really apply to anything in our reality, right? It can apply to religion, it can apply to Jesus, it can apply to the devil, it can apply to saviors, it can apply to good situations, it can apply to bad situations. So I guess my question really is how much of our reality is run by these egregores, right? Could could a virus be an egregore?
There's
I
a
don't
book
know.
out there called The God Virus. Have you heard on the quantum level? The discussion is now is this is consciousness. Um, we defined a reality as the basis of existence. That's how we measure ourselves against what we call this thing called reality. In quantum mechanics, it is discussed that consciousness, you see, there's only consciousness. There is no reality. Even right now, the question becomes, for instance, if you look at a quantum experiment where we talked about the wave and the particle, even on the quantum level, it's implying in order for an experiment to work, there has to be an observer. And an observer would be consciousness. But consciousness doesn't necessarily need a reality. Does that make sense? Reality needs the consciousness.
Right. It's like the old saying: if a tree falls in the forest, did it really did it fall?
Yeah,
Did it
did it
really
make a
fall? Right?
sound?
Did it make a sound? Right. And it goes back to, yeah, it did if someone was there to observe it and to see it fall and to hear it. Right.
So
It's go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying that if we live in a artificial reality simulation construct, which is the most plausible for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, every part of our reality can be programmed, right? With our consciousness, with our intent, right? Like we can program anything in our reality, right? So we have a choice. We can either be the, a playable character, which is just going around in this reality as doing everything that we're supposed to be doing and whatever, or we can be a non-playable character, which doesn't have, we're just walking around like a zombie, right? Or we can be the programmer of
You
our
see
reality.
that. You see, I look at my life, and I never did conform. Never did. I paid a price for it. One person told me, and she was a seer of the other side. She said, "You are of those who enter in, you never put roots down, you never conform, and what you do behind you is a whirlwind." And you know what? She's right.
Yeah.
But you are, what I hear in you, Ryder, is I hear an updated version of people like Earl Nightingale, people like Zig Ziglar. These were the men, and there were, unfortunately, wasn't a very many women, but I learned at a very early age with Earl Nightingale that if I focus in on it, doesn't matter what my background is, doesn't matter what my social economic
Mm.
background is, that if I can begin to discipline one single thought, then it'll happen. And I want to add on to this, Ryder. Here's another thought about you and I, everyone else out there. You and I are actually the manifestations of many different servitors. They've attached themselves to our consciousness in this realm. Now, these servitors, if they're left undisciplined, they produce undisciplined results.
Mm.
But people don't like to think that as your consciousness came into this realm, you began to create servitors for your existence in this realm. You see, I know what going hungry is like as a child. I know what that experience of being hungry was. And I can remember living with my mother at the time and hungry. I mean, really hungry. I actually stole a kid's lunch at school one day so my brother and I could eat. I mean, that's how hungry we were. But what it did for me is in that time was that I began to focus in on my mind that I was never going to be hungry again. And now here it is, you know, 55 plus years later, I've never gone hungry again.
Yeah, it does take like belief and focusing in, right? And there's nothing more powerful than a collective belief in a singular thing,
Yeah.
right? Negative or positive, when everyone's on the same page, um, miracles happen,
Yeah.
right?
I've seen it.
You know, or it could be negative. You could turn, miracles into
And we've seen
disasters.
that's called a riot,
Yeah.
a lynch mob. That's exactly, I think, the dichotomy of two different things. In one environment, people are expecting the dead to be erased. In the other one, they're wanting to put the dead back into the ground. It's really, I mean, it's like, okay, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, pick a side here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And that's the key. Don't pick a side. You
no,
know, someone says, well, you have to make a decision. No, no, I don't think that there's A, B, C. I think there's beyond the alphabet. We're going to go into the Greek alphabet. We're going into omega and beta and, etc.
yeah. We're splicing letters in half and then combining them to make our
Exactly.
own language. Yeah.
Exactly. And Ryder, what I really enjoy seeing in you is your generation. Um, you're dealing with issues that my generation, because my generation is getting ready to exit out. And what I see your generation about to inherit, I hope, I trust, I pray to the goddess, whoever she may be, that your generation, what your generation is lacking is what we used to call revivals. Back in the 70s, the reason why the move of the Holy Spirit was so strong as a movement, which led in becoming the evangelical movement, was that the youth was involved. And we somehow touched that ethereal thing, that supernatural that we wanted. And that's why people really go for a religion. They're looking for a supernatural manifestation.
Mm.
And we found it. When the move of the Holy Spirit swept across the world at that time, it captured the essence of everything that we had, our politics, our society, our culture. But unfortunately, it's the thing about movements and revolutions, that's just the problem. A movement will move on. A revolution, this is a revolution.
Yeah, and they want to kind of hijack this revolution too, and they want to make it about fear, violence, and
Oh,
hate,
yeah, yeah,
right?
no, yeah,
When that's not what a revolution is supposed to be,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's supposed to be a revolution for better and for
It's
change
supposed to be, yes, it
and to
is.
help everyone, right?
Yeah. I hope that your generation really, because they say about the baby boomers, we were the igniter that brought into full manifestation what we're seeing today. I don't think that's the case. I think that there was an agenda that was behind there that no one recognized. We're seeing it today and we're not liking it at all. So,
Yeah, basically anything that is that's on the news, any kind of group that's coming up now. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't know how the shadow
yeah, the
banning
old
and all the
algorithm AI
censors
is listening,
the censors do. They're all infiltrated, right? Because they would never let them get to the point that they have if they weren't actually letting them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's why
That's how you know that it's not real. That's how you know that it's not organic. That's how you know that it didn't naturally occur because it's still happening. Right?
The concerted effort in creating this alternate reality is mind-blowing. I mean, we don't watch the news. I hear from other people talking, and when we do turn the TV on, what I'm seeing is that I'm shaking my head and I'm going, this is nuts. I mean, this is nuts. And they
Yeah.
call us crazy?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'll stay with this group because you know what?
Yeah.
Us crazy folks, we have a good time here.
Yeah.
Those folks out there, they ain't having such a good time.
They're having a horrible time. I
Aren't
mean,
they though?
2020 was really one of the best years that I've really had. And I don't like to say that because I know a lot of people have had it really, really tough and they've lost, their jobs and they lost their livelihood. But like I've been a hermit basically, my entire life. I go to work and then like I come home. So it's kind of normal for me. I go to the grocery store once a week, so it's like, it's been great. And it's been a really good way to go inside, right?
I've
To go
loved it.
inside of you though, right?
Yeah.
Because if there's one passage out of the Bible that actually does resonate with me, that I actually think is true, is when Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within,
Mm-hmm.
right? No truer words has ever been spoken, right? And we have all of this trauma. We have all of these negative attachments that we've let just fester inside of us, right? Now is, I don't know where anyone's listening to this, what part of the country you're in, or if you're in a different country or whatever. But if you're in lockdown right now, or you're in quarantine, please use this time wisely, right? You meditate, use breath work, dissolve your traumas, cut cords with all of the things that no longer serve you, right? And then once we let go of all that, we can get out of this emotional reaction to everything, right? Because that's what the media is there to do. That's what this control system is there to do. I mean, there's many levels to all of this, but that's one of the main things, right? Is to get us in this reactionary emotional state in our lower consciousness level.
Yeah.
Right. So we're easily controlled and easily manipulated there. I've said it several times that observation is the key to self mastery, right? And loving detachment, right? Like I can talk to you about something and I can observe that, but I can't be attached to it, right? Because if I'm attached to it, then you're dragging me down to your level, right? And that's where they want you. They want all of the chaos and the fear and the anger and the hate. They want everyone entrenched in that, right? So you have to step back and detach yourself from all that and just observe it without reacting.
And I'll take it a step further, um, Ryder, is that you have to inject a counter thought into the machine.
Hmm.
And that's what we're doing. I mean, and you're right, there is so polarized out there.
Mhm.
But I had this opportunity where there was a discussion, and I said, well, what do you think about the true goddess? Looked at me going like, what the freak were you, what? Anyway, while this hour has gone by, I mean, it has really gone by. Nina, the Mystic, I think she's going to have her show over on her channel. So thank you. Ryder, it has just been a privilege to have you in here. I think that your generation has if there are enlightened spirits such as yourself, uh, speaking forth a new, different reality, then there is hope for this species. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and that's really my goal, right? And my goal is sort of like your channel too, is to expand people's consciousness and raise their vibration, right? Because
Yeah.
I think that that's the key to all of this, right? Is to question our reality and take in different perspectives. Just because you don't agree with me or I don't agree with you doesn't mean that we can't get along. It doesn't mean we can't be in the same space. That's what people really need to grasp their minds around, right? We can have disagreements, right?
Yeah.
But whenever we're attacking each other and telling each other what to believe, that's where it becomes a problem, right? Whenever you get character assassinated or you're being personally attacked or you're being told like I have the death upon me, and, then that's where it becomes a problem, and that's where it becomes an issue, and that's where I many of us take it kind of personally, right? Because we're here to grow, right? We're here to expand, and
Yeah.
everything isn't finite, right? Everything, there's nothing in this reality, nothing in this construct that's absolute, you know?
True. True. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Wayne. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love the conversation. It flowed really well. I'd love to have you on my channel sometime.
Yeah. Send me out an email. We'll get a time put together. Love to. Yeah. I've enjoyed
Awesome.
this hour. It has been, and I've watched the chat. They've been, someone has finally figured it out. Is that Dig? Is it Dig to it? Yep. There you go. We're going to be talking about this tomorrow, folks. People finally are seeing the logo behind me. And I just want to say thank you, Marsha Price. We're going to talk more on this. Ryder, I just speak favor over you, my friend. Empowered to prosper, grow. Folks, get over there. Let's double his subscription, and love to come on sometime. And I'll continue to tune in on your side and see what you got going on your end.
Thank you so much, Wayne, and favor to you, and favor to everyone that's watching, and BOSTO to everyone, and appreciate everyone.